Hi guys, it's Mr. Bennett here. I just want to go through the car racing investigation for most students who've chosen this one. So this particular thing, you remember maybe as a kid you might have had a slot car set, and when you're driving your slot car set, obviously you have two lanes, so you have an inside lane and an outside lane, and you might go, it's unfair that you get to go in the inside lane because you don't have to travel as far, and so therefore you've got an advantage. So what we want to look at here essentially is it fair that the person who travels in the inside and outside lane, and how much further do they travel if they do travel any further, and then also you can expand this particular project to be looking at things like if you basically drove the perfect race, how would what sort of time could you do around the track, based on the fact that you can do certain speeds around certain types of bends. Alright, so depending on how steep it is. So that's the modelling part that comes into it for you when we start looking at that. So what we've got here is we've got the pieces that you've got to make your track out of. So you've got 10 of R3s and you've got 4 of R2s and so on. And then you've got these ones which are sectors. All right, so that will be the mathematical calculations that you'll need to do for that. And they've got the angles there. And then you've also got 4 special pieces that you'll make of your own. So that's the bit to make your track a little bit different from maybe someone else's. When you're doing this project, I'm thinking, you'd probably want to work in groups of 3, so you actually share the workload of the track design and so on. I would think the first thing I would do is I'd probably make a model of this, all right, and I'd actually make my track up. Then I'd take a picture, all right, so I'd show a pictorial view of my track, and then I'd do the calculations based on that. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense to you. So I think that's the bit that I would essentially do. So get your track design right for that. You could use CAD and a drawing program for that as well if you wanted to, but certainly I wouldn't want to be spending heaps and heaps of time on my track design. I want to be spending more time on the modelling. You could even look at a couple of different types of tracks, so you might go for a more overly type track where it's a little bit like NASCAR, and you could also do a bit of a loopy sort of track like an S-bend or something like that. That might be, it's really up to you to use a bit of creativity with that. So obviously we want to work out the differences between the inside track and the outside track. All right, so you need to calculate the area of the track, and what we're asking you to do is, let's say you were going to be designing this track here. What will be the amount of area of paint if you're going to just shade the inside part of the track? So let's say we were going to, we can make different colours for this particular track based on what kids would like. So if I go into here, so for one set of tracks we could have a yellow, alright, so that's the track design. So I've got a nice yellow track, and another kid who's a girl might want a nice pink track. Okay, so you can decide the colour, and then we're working out this area in here. Okay, so that's the area that you need to work out. Alright, based on that, so that's a calculation that you will have to make for that. You have to decide, now you need to obviously show the full calculations. Now I've given you some speeds, so that will allow you to work out how fast theoretically this particular car should better go around the bends. Alright. Now I'm suggesting that a spreadsheet might be a really good way of doing this for you. I've got one here that I used as a starting point for some kids. I'm not necessarily all that happy with this one. So, but in terms of what you would have to do, you'd have to have the different pieces. So I'd be probably thinking R1, R2, R3, and then bend 1, bend 2, bend 3, or circular 1, 2 and 3. And then you have to also include your particular things in there. So the idea would be to look at, obviously the distances that you've got on your particular track. So this has got the inner length and the outer length, and then you've got the area of each of the pieces. Okay, so you can work out your total area that you need to do. And then that idea here, I think, is looking at the different speeds. So what I'll do is I will plan out a spreadsheet for those people that want to use that, and I'll make that available to them. So they've got a bit of an idea about how to use that spreadsheet. Now, keeping in mind, it's about you doing some of that work. All right, so I only do the nuts and bolts, the real basic one, and you can extend that to what it needs to be done. Again, it's really important. Obviously, you're going to pass up a report which has got an introduction, all your results. So, I would, once you've got your track set up, I'd certainly take a picture and incorporate that. Or you have maybe two different designs. So you might want to compare two different designs of the track, especially if you're using the spreadsheet. You could easily change that. You could even model that for different types of tracks where you have a certain number of inners and outers. See if that actually makes a difference. Then obviously your analysis, which is really important. Talking about any refinements that you might make, improvements, any extensions that you do, and then you're obviously going to do a summary which relates to the aim of the practical. So you're going to summarise the key findings that you do have. Now, the key thing again is obviously with your performance standards, to get your mathematical thing, you have to show a comprehensive knowledge of the content. Okay, you have to develop an effective application of the mathematical model. All right, so we'll be making a judgment, myself and Mrs. Wolf, about how will you do that. How does that come across in terms of your final product, which is your write-up. So your write-up needs to be very efficient, very effective in terms of, we're not looking for students to write 10 pages of waffle. We'd rather them write 3 or 4 pages of really good quality writing and analysis. Not to say that, to effectively do this, that you might need to incorporate, whatever length. We're not setting a particular length of an assignment, but don't make it bigger than Ben-Hur. All right, just keep it manageable. All right, get to the point with what you want to say, and don't, once you've said it, you've said it. All right, that's the way you need to write. So we'll show some exemplars of some assignments that you can use. Obviously, writing as an expert is a really important thing. So, it needs to be written like an expert. So you keep out the I stuff and you make it impersonal, and you talk about it that way. The modelling stuff is really important for this investigation, all right? Because there's just the key concept, which is making a car design. So the modelling part of this particular thing is a really important part of the investigation, and obviously the spreadsheet will be crucial to that in terms of the thing that you've got to do there. All right, so it's really about showing off the mathematics. It's about getting to the point. It's about talking about certain errors that you might have with your track design, how these things, so if you're talking about limitations, we've got these sort of speeds, so maybe you could go a bit faster, maybe you could go a bit slower. How about if the angle when they made the machines, that wasn't quite 22 degrees, it was actually 23 degrees? How do you measure 22.5 degrees? Obviously we've got technology that will do that quite accurately. The question is, why would we use 22.5 degrees? Well, I think that's possibly half of, the other one, 45. So yeah, looking at other possible angles that might be useful. So when you're designing your track, it's all about then, making it fun for kids to actually do this and model. So in your pieces, you might stick to things like, you might go 60 degrees, you might go 75 degrees, right, to make your piece, and see how that affects, the design of the track. So I think this has got a lot of scope for, a bit of trial and error stuff in here, but also to look at a range of effective things to talk about how can I design a track that is going to be fair for both competitors. All right, so good luck with it. Make sure you ask for some help. As I've just said in the other previous video, if you watched that, what we'll do is we'll have a deadline for a draft. Okay, so after that draft date, there'll be no extra consultation from the teacher. So up to that particular point, you'll be able to catch up with your teachers, myself and Mrs. Wolf, and you will be able to get some feedback about what you're doing, whether you're on the right track. There'll be basically a draft that you'll submit. We will give you some feedback on that draft to improve what you've done, and then obviously there'll be a due date, which will be roughly about a week after that. All right, so we'll be expecting you to submit this up on DayMat. The other thing I need to say with the report, it needs to flow really well. So if you do multiple calculations of certain things, then include those in Appendix C and then summarise those results in your main body of your assignment. So either put them into a table or into a graph or whatever you need to do. So it's about making sure when I'm reading your main project, your main investigation, your report, that it just flows and it's logical. All right, so that's really important that you do that. So yeah, good luck with this. If you do need some help, just make sure you catch up with us as you're going through it.